So actually, how you configure is first. So we have a constant formic is equal to use formic. It requires some attributes. What are the attributes is initial values. It is an object. Defines the data to handle. So validate. Configures a function to validate data. Validation schema. It uses built-in validation services. On submit. It collects form data and submits to server. Allows to reinitialize. Enable reinitialization true false. Allows to reinitialize the data. Reinitialize the data. These are all the options. Now, how do you attach and how do we handle this? Actually, if you have a form on submit, it uses formic dot handle submit. And if you have a text box on change, it uses formic dot handle change. You can just attach these events. Suppose you have a select on change, formic dot handle change. You don't need to write the events. You have to just attach the events. You don't need to write the events. You need to just attach the events. In this Formic, there are so many techniques and options. We will see them, how to handle that. So what is advantage of using these libraries are security. They already work on it. They already designed all the security concepts and they just given you predefined functions. These functions will prevent from various type of memory leaks, security issues and all. So let's see how it works. The simple form. First, what you have to do. So first step, install Formic library. npm install Formic and save. Next, install the Formic library. Next, import use Formic hook from Formic. Configure Formic or configure form. And just like I said, constant Formic is equal to use Formic, like that. Bind with elements, which already I showed you. On change, handle change, like this. So we have various options with different examples. We can explore them. We will see that. Right. So that is example. Let's see how we can manage that here. So you remove this all, okay, and just reference I change it. Make sure that every form element have a name. Name is compulsory. First we have to install npm install Formic and save. Okay, once Formic is installed, now you need to import use Formic from Formic. We need to configure constant Formic is equal to what? Use Formic. Okay, it requires initial values. Initial values is an object. It defines what data you want to handle. Data is a key value collection. That means I want to handle username and it is a string. I want to handle a mobile and it is a string. And remember, these initial values should map with the names you given for the elements. Initial value should map with the names. That means what are the values this form have to handle? And the values must refer to name. You already know in HTML, every form element must have a name. If name is not there, then what will happen? Form cannot submit the data of that element. So that is mandatory. Every form element must have a name. Initial values must map to the name. After that, simple on submit. Here I am not using any validation. On submit uses a function. What this function will do, it will collect the data and submits the data. Data is nothing but the data coming from the form. And console.log, I will put data. And what is the data? Data is an object with key and values. What are keys? The field names are keys and their values are values. Now what we have to do on submit, it should submit which one? Formic dot what? Handle submit. Formic dot handle submit. Here on change, what it should do? Formic dot what? Handle change. Here also on change. Formic dot handle change. Just you have to use handle change. What what is the point? Already Formic is having an handle change event. That event will collect the data from this text box and it will post the data here. That's it. Now you can see when I enter any data, I'm entering the data here. Okay, let's see. Here I'm entering some data and submit. It will do the same. Same thing. If you are dealing with lengthy forms, you are dealing with complex for data, you are dealing with a sensitive data, this will be very safe, secured, and better. And here we are not using any validations. We can add validations. I will show you how to add validation. We'll see how we can manage validation. So this is one third party Formic library. What is advantage of that? You can easily collect the data from the form and you can easily use the data. Now, the key point is here, it has so many things I will show you. This is an example. So here, few important points you should know. So a simple note I will give. Formic options, attributes. Formic attributes include following details. What are the details? One is initial values. So what is this initial values? I will give a point here. A key and value collection of form data. That means it will have initial values, object. Here we have a key and a value. Key is field name. Another important is on submit. It uses a function to collect and use form data. So on submit, it collects the data. These are two important basic. So this is for accessing the data and using it. Now, how validation works? So we will see that. Validate. It delegates a validation function. It delegates a validation function. Delegation means function pointer. The given validation function must return error object. Given validation function must return error object. It must return error object. Right. So how this works, I will show you. Means generally, so validation function. That's just how you define. And how to define the validation function. Let's see one point. Simple validation I will give here. There are so many techniques of validation. Validation means what? Validation means validator. Hmm. What is validation? Validation is the process of verifying user input and ensuring that contradictory, unauthorized data is not stored into the database. That means validation is the process of ensuring that unauthorized and contradictory data is not stored in the database. Contradictory means we are expecting one type and they are sending some another type. Unauthorized means I am expecting certain limit, it is out of that limit, right? This is the point. Generally, in JavaScript, we have to write all the validations manually. Here also we can do. So in some occasions we have to do that. Here built-in validations also present. We can use built-in validations. And one another important point is you learned when we learned about HTML that HTML form have default validation. So when you are writing validation, make sure that the default validation is disabled. Otherwise, HTML have default validation. How to disable default validation? We have to use for form as no validate. That is important. You learnt in HTML that form have a no validate, which will disable default validation, because HTML forms have default validation, min length, max length, pattern, right? Min, max. These are all default validations of HTML. When you are writing your own validation, you better disable the default validation. How we can disable default validation using no val? Let's see how validation works. One small point I will tell you, because in this so many levels are there. We will see. First thing, see. So I want here when I submit, I don't want to submit empty, but as of now it submits empty. I don't want to submit empty. I want to verify whether data is entered or not. And what is the key point here is, you know, by default you can give required, but it will not work now. Why? Because I used no validate. No validate means the default validations will not work. Why you disable default validations? If required is good, why you are disabling? We disable default validation because in HTML, the validations that they provide may not suit your requirements every time. Suppose you are using email validation, email, input type email. What they will verify? They will verify whether at the net present or not. They will not verify anything else. You just put an at the net in your email, it says valid. But that's not enough. Only at the net is not enough. I said A at the net G, it will say valid. That's not good. Then we plan to write our own validation and we use those validation. How? See, here the concept is you design a simple function. This is validate user. This function will take the form data. Will take the form data. In the form data, we have username and mobile. And what this validate user function will do is it will have a error object, errors object. And what it is going to do is it returns that errors object. That means what validate user will do, it will return this errors object. And what this errors object contain? It contains errors related to username and mobile. So what we will do is we will write a logic. If form data is nothing but form data is a parameter which collects the form data. If form data have username and dot length is equal to 0, what does it means? That means by using this form data, we are accessing which field? Username, and its length is 0. If it is 0, then what does it means? In the errors is an object. Errors dot username is equal to, that means in that username error, we will put a message. What is it? Username required. Else we can write multiple conditions, right? Else if what you do, you check another condition, right? If length is less than 4, name too short, we will see complex. Let's put simple first. Okay, another condition. What is it? If form data dot mobile dot length is equal to what? 0, then errors dot what? Mobile. Here we should display mobile as what? Required. We have mobile required and username required. Simple, two simple basic logics I written. Now this function must be used by our form. Then here before submit, we have to use validate. Which function it should use? Validate user function it should use. That means now what will happen? Whenever you submit the form, when you submit the form, it will first fire up this validate. What validate will do? It will call this function validate user. This validate user will collect your form data. It will verify is the data is valid or not. If data is valid, then it is going to submit. If not valid, it is going to display these messages. That means now where to show the error messages? Error message must be displayed below. Here I will put a data definition. How to display error message? Now you can access Formic have errors object. Formic is having errors object. This is errors object now. And in that, which error you want to display? I want to display username error. That is username field related error. And I will put color. Here I will put a color class name text danger. And here I will put another data definition. And here formic dot what? Formic dot errors. Which error? Mobile. And here we are displaying so class text danger. And you can see here now I click on submit. So without entering, it says name required, mobile required. I entered some username. I'm entering some username. Now it is fine. I'm entering some mobile number. Now it is fine. And I click on submit. It will submit. If there is any problem, suppose I entered mobile number and name is not there. I submit. It's not submitting until or unless I entered some data and submit. It is submitted. That is a simple validation, but it's not great. Why it is not great? Because you are writing the validation for every element manually. We have a solution for this also. That means drop down, checkbox, radios, list boxes. If you know proper JavaScript, you know how to validate them. How to validate whether a drop down is selected with a city or not. How to validate whether a radio button is selected or not. Those are all JavaScript logics. And those JavaScript logic you can implement here and you can write the functionality. I will show you little complex form, but this is lengthy process. For this also they have a solution. There are third party libraries. You just attach them. Automatically they will validate everything. Required validation, min length validation, max length validation, pattern validation, everything is ready made. You don't need to write logic. You have to just attach them. It is going to handle. That we will see in a separate session, right? In tomorrow's session, we will do, right? In tomorrow's session, entire session will be working on validation, which is very important part in form, especially while working with the forms. How to handle validation, work with validation in a separate concept, I will explain. All these notes step by step I will give how to validate and all. Now, as of now, up to today, without validation, you try designing form with various examples I showed you. You try to do that. If you can do that, validation part we will see in next session. Tomorrow we will see examples and working with validation, how to handle them. Right? Tomorrow we'll continue.